The big financial investment story in the region at the moment is obviously the Saudi Aramco IPO. What is your impression of that as for somebody outside the region looking?
Well, listen, I think that, I'm a long-term securities analyst, and so when I look at the forward cash flows and I look at the growth potential for Saudi Aramco, I actually think it's quite reasonably priced. So it was a pretty successful IPO, and I think it was very smart for the Saudis to list it, and I would suspect it'll eventually get listed somewhere, if not in Hong Kong or Japan, possibly at some point in the United States on the New York Stock Exchange. And I predict that there'll be a very deep and liquid global market for Saudi Aramco. And so it's just another sign of progress. I think that if you were going to try to be as objective as possible about the Middle East in general, UAE, Saudi, et cetera, you would say that these governments are doing the best they can to embrace the intersection of modernity and progress, both social progress and scientific progress, but at the same time maintaining their idealism related to their faith. And so I think these countries are doing a great job of that. And I predict that there'll be more liquidity events like that in the region.
Okay. And we saw at the recent NATO conference in London, some world leaders, including Canada, I think it was France and the UK, seemed to be back-chatting about Trump, and he didn't take it very well. Do you see that him being president has a negative impact on globally?
Oh, listen, I mean, I think it has a negative impact on him. I think he's short-termism for him is that he's not handling himself well on the world stage, and so that's the reason why you're seeing that back-channel conversation. I think long-term, it's going to have very negligible consequence for the United States. Like, what people need to understand about the United States is that there's continuity and there's a continuum that dates back to the revolution, but really the modern era would be the end of World War II to where we are today. And I think that there's been a bipartisan commitment to a peaceful alliance and global prosperity and peace and stability in this region, the one that we're living in here right now, and the rest of the world. So he's short-term situation, short-term resident there who acts in a way that I think reflects poorly on himself, but less so on the United States.
And who do you think could possibly beat him from the Democrat side?
Well, I mean, again, these are just my personal opinions. I would say Elizabeth Warren cannot beat him. Bernie Sanders cannot beat him. Even though the consensus is he'll get impeached, he'll survive the impeachment process in the Senate, although you never know with these things because of the way information comes out. But the consensus is that he'll survive, and then he'll be the Republican nominee. I'm against that consensus. I think that he'll likely not run for re-election. I think there'll be a number of different factors that will come into play. But I think that as far as Mike Bloomberg could beat him, Joe Biden could definitely beat him.
Okay, and there was the most recent Democratic candidate that pulled out. She made a point that because she wasn't a billionaire. Do you think that the financing of campaigns that should be looked at to make it an equal playing field regardless of your personal income?
Listen, I mean, the Supreme Court has already registered its opinion on that. They effectively said that the money in your pocket is a form of your ability to use your free speech. And so I've made a lot of money as a result of my entrepreneurship, and I've got a lot of money in my bank account, and my freedom, my personal freedom, requires or allows me to put up as many billboards as I want or to express my political views. So I think it's going to be a sticky area in the U.S. related to freedom of speech. If someone's got a lot of dough, that they're not allowed to spend it on their own campaign. I think it seems somewhat anti-American, but listen, anything can happen. I think we've learned that. Donald Trump's the president of the United States, so we know anything can happen. And so but my prediction is that people who have wealth will be able to spend it the way they want to.
And we spoke about that you were raising money to launch a campaign, but do you have any political ambitions yourself for a higher office?
No, I mean, I think your editor has me running for president, which I think is it's either flattering or horrifying. I'm not exactly sure which way I would describe it, but I would say to you that I don't see myself as a politician. I see myself more as an entrepreneur. I'm also very direct. I mean, I'll tell you exactly what I think, wear everything on my sleeve. If you look at the political landscape over the last 3 or 4 decades, the modern political landscape, I don't fit into any category. Some people say that the president tells you everything, but he's probably sent out 12,000 lies. To the extent that sometimes I've told lies, I don't do it intentionally. I'm really trying to be right up the middle and tell you exactly how I think. And so I think it'd be very difficult to be a politician. But it makes for an effective business person, because then people, what you see is what you get.
And from your time in the White House, the one question I always personally want to know is, do you see that Ivanka is being lined up as the next successor in like the Trump dynasty?
Well, I mean, look, for Trump, I think the real question is Trumpism going to survive President Trump? Because if Trumpism is going to survive President Trump, then people like Donald Trump Jr. and Ivanka Trump obviously would have an opening there, and they would be future political prospects. But you have to answer that question first. I have no disrespect to any of the president's children. I happen to like them personally, but I think there's just going to be a very hard time for Trumpism to survive President Trump, because Trumpism represents demagoguery. And if you look at the history of demagoguery in the United States, it burns brightly, 3, 4, possibly 5 years. Look at the Joe McCarthy era, ended after 4.5 years. And then it dies out. And once it dies out, people are scratching their heads and saying, geez, what was I doing that for? Why was I involved with it? So, okay. I don't know.
You have changed your mind from being very, very pro to anti. Is there anything he could do that would sway your mind?
How's that?
Nothing.
No. I mean, it's over. I mean, the guy's Looney Tunes. So, I mean, no, the answer.
And then finally, SALT Abu Dhabi. So what's next for SALT, or do you see this as being a regular?
Well, I would love to see this be a regular Abu Dhabi event. Obviously, it would be up to our sponsors out here, Mubadala, Etihad, Airways, obviously Abu Dhabi Global Markets, been a huge sponsor of ours. We'd have to see. ADNOC has also been a huge sponsor. If they want to come back and help me do this or help my team do this, I would love to be back here. I think it's been a resounding success.